Now to welcome our next live guest. We've got Lori Hano-Royer, who is the head of customer solutions at Plus. Lori, thank you for joining us this morning on FreightWaves Now.
Great, thanks for having me here today.
I've got to say, I'm really excited for this conversation because this is like a precursor to the panel that I get to moderate at the AUVSI conference next week in Orlando. And I'm honestly kind of nervous to moderate the panel, so I feel like I can get my nerves out here with you today.
Wonderful, I love it.
So you're going to be on that panel with me, and we're going to be talking about kind of what the true commercialization of autonomous vehicles looks like. And we'll save that for that later date at the AUVSI conference. But for today, let's kind of dig into Plus and the autonomy strategy that you guys have developed there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Plus is a level 4 autonomous company, and we have a vision for getting to our level 4 autonomous solutions. And it's a gradual vision, which means we start with a driver in solution and we move to a driver out solution sometime later into the future. And it's a gradual approach that allows us to collect data and really understand all of the things that are happening. So the technology stack that we have in our product that's on the market today is our level 4 technology stack. And so we're able to collect data and understand all of the components of the real world driving. So we're collecting millions and millions of miles right now, and that will soon turn into billions of miles as we understand how the truck operates on the interstates and on the highways and what the traffic patterns look like. And we also do simulations, but there's just there's no better way than real world miles. So we're using the technology today to collect data and basically make it so that when we get to the driver out solution, that we already have real world miles in the billions category.
So, Lori, welcome to the program. Very nice to catch up with you again. It's been a while since we last spoke. Good to see you. So, let's talk a little bit more about Plus Drive and the reasons behind why you're rolling out the way you're doing it, and how that is different from what others are doing.
Right. So Plus Drive is a level 2 ADAS system. And I think about it in comparison to other ADAS systems that are available on the market today. And most of them come from an engineering standpoint. And they're great because they provide safety for everyone on the road. And the Plus Drive system comes at it from a level 4 technology stack software approach and says, instead of saying driver be aware or be alert that there's something happening here and you need to pay attention, the Plus Drive solution handles it. And so it's basically leaving the driver in and saying, instead of saying we don't need the driver at all, how do we relieve stress, relieve fatigue, and be able to provide a safer environment for everyone while the driver is still 100% responsible behind the wheel at all times.
I think that responsibility component is something that critics of AV technology have really tried to kind of bring to the forefront in an argument against using it, right? Is who at the end of the day is responsible to take over when things go wrong? A lot of people are saying, you know what, it's a computer system, how do you manage the computer system? But keeping that driver in is that extra kind of level of a safety net, correct? Can you talk about the decision to keep that is the driver in system, and why that can kind of ease some folks' minds when they're thinking about that deployment of AV?
Yeah, so keeping the driver in allows us to basically understand what's really happening and what the drivers are doing. The system that we have was built by drivers for drivers. And so a lot of times the drivers say, oh, this is doing something that I would do in my normal driving situation. And so I feel very comfortable. And I like to describe it as a driving style. So I have a driving style, you have a driving style, every person has a different sort of driving style, and Plus Drive has its own driving style. And the reason is because it operates from a technology standpoint. So it's not exactly the same as any one of us would do, but you get acclimated to that driving style very quickly. And then you're, how do I say this? You are basically making sure that the truck is doing everything that you would expect it to do. We have a driver screen as part of the Plus Drive product that provides information of whether the truck is trying to accelerate or if it's braking, so that the driver understands what the technology is doing and it can be responsible and say, oh, I don't want the technology to do this right now. I'm going to take back possession and I'm going to drive in a manual mode at this moment. And we believe that that is really critical in basically this gradual approach to what happens when there's no driver in. And so we have level 4 trucks that we also do testing with and pilots just like everyone else out there, and they require a safety driver. And so our objective is to say, we believe the safety driver is important. And in fact, it's so important that we can provide solutions today that allow those drivers to be there and basically improve their quality of their daily jobs.
Lori, it sounds like, we used to talk, it seems like decades ago in the development of autonomous vehicles, was like an hour and a half ago in reality, right? About how the driver might become a pilot. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're doing, right? The driver's in there and he's kind of making sure the truck is doing what it's supposed to be doing, kind of like an engineer or a pilot that is flying that plane when you're en route and doing these type of things. How has that feedback been from those companies and from those drivers that are in there experiencing this?
Yes. So I'll say doing demos is my favorite part of my job, and getting drivers in there. A lot of them come with maybe I'll say a chip on their shoulder.
Sure.
And
they want to prove it wrong, right?
Exactly. And to be honest, those are my favorite drivers, because with those drivers, they give us feedback that then turns into an enhanced product in the future. Once we have an overall training program. So before you can get behind the wheel, you do a 30-minute in-class training, and then we do a behind-the-wheel training where we basically walk you through multiple of the features live while you're driving the vehicle, so that you understand how the technology works. And then, as I mentioned before, we have the driver screen. So we're giving feedback and building trust all the while. And so drivers very quickly get acclimated to the system, and they say, oh, I can see the benefit of this. An example I'll give is we were recently doing a demo with a customer, and it was rain, sleet, and snow all in the same day, as well as 20-mile-an-hour sustained winds and up to 40-mile-an-hour gusts. And while we were on the highway, the wind was blowing very hard, and we have that built into our algorithms. And so the truck might have blown a little bit over, but then would, basically do its get back into its center line and stay centered in the lane. And the truck driver basically didn't realize it until he exited the highway. And he said, I knew it was really windy outside, but I didn't realize how much the system was doing until I exited the highway and I took control and basically started driving the truck manually and felt how hard it was to keep control of the vehicle. And once the drivers see that, they really understand quickly how this technology is supportive, as opposed to basically telling them to do something different. It's basically just a very supportive technology.
Think has been the biggest opportunity brought forward from this feedback that you guys have received at Plus? And then how have you altered the technology, the driver and technology, to account for that opportunity?
So some of the features, one of my favorites is called a nudge. And so if we talk about lane centering again, the technology would say, just stay towards the center of the lane and, follow the line that goes through the center. And we all know that we don't drive that way. And so, for example, if you're in a Plus Drive truck in the right lane and another truck comes up on the left side of you, the truck will actually nudge over a little bit to the right side of the lane to provide more space. And the same thing would happen if you were in the right lane again, and let's say there was a vehicle in the emergency lane, the truck would nudge over a little bit to the left in the lane. And so this is, again, the technology developed by drivers for drivers, where they give us feedback and say, I get you want to stay centered in the lane, but that's not how I drive. And so I think some of those developments that come directly from drivers are some of the best features that we have to move forward with.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense having the drivers and what you guys are doing there and developing up, positioning yourselves in not only commercially for the development of the AV world, but also that feedback from the drivers. I wish you could take that nudge technology and put it on some of the cars out here. So when you came up to them on the left-hand lane, it would just gently nudge them to the right lane so I could get by. That would be sweet. Can you work on that for me, Lori?
Yeah, exactly.
she'll take care of it for you. Lori, thank you for joining us today. Great to have you. I'm excited to get to do this again in Orlando next week. Make sure that you tune into FreightWaves Now for the updates from the AUVSI conference on Monday next week. See you soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Always excellent stuff.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. That wraps up our first hour of content here on FreightWaves Now for your Tuesday, but we'll be back with another full hour in just a few minutes.